Why does David Icke tolerate the white supremacy of Alex Jones? Why does David Icke call out Paul Joseph Watson for his hatred, as he said, quote, several months ago, which was echoed by Richie Allen? Why are you fighting hate with hate? So we see the continuation of the David Icke Alex Jones association. From what I can tell, David was on the Alex Jones show back in May. Now, David Icke, here's a book from him, by the way. One of the first books that I ever read from David Icke was this. It was back in the year 2002. There were a lot of things that I learned from David Icke's work in my early years that helped Alex Ansary spark off. David Icke was also one of my very first guests. I've actually spoken with him 3 times. I've met him once. When I met him, and there's that, arm around the back. That's actually the last time I talked to him. So it was fine when David Icke didn't know my appearance. It was fine when I was just a regular internet guy. It was after that day that I met him for about 3 minutes and had my picture taken with him. And I also sent him some other information regarding my ancestry and curiosity about why is there such a demonization of the Middle East bloodlines, right? Why is there this ancient connection with Ansari that goes to the ancient world? That was the last time I heard from David Icke. I mentioned this also in passing, just in a message to Richie Allen during the People's Voice period, and I noticed that it seemed to be a sea of unknown white faces that were on the People's Voice, not alternative media individuals of different stripes and colors that perhaps have been supporting David Icke for years. That was a sign that the guy was a control freak. But I'm not here to bash David Icke's work. I'm here to get something off my chest that I've wanted to get off my chest for a long, long time. I have several experiences with people that were, hero isn't the right word, but an inspiration. Men that inspired me. Men that made me stop in my tracks and go, whoa, that person is tapped into something that I'm also picking up on. What else do they know? And there's a lot of us human beings that are tapping into a collective body of knowledge. Who knows? Some of us may be related on a soul level, beyond biology, but on the soul level. And even though, some of us may look different, and you may put me into a box, or others may put me into a box. If you could see my mother's family, you could see my mother's brother. There's a fairly generic look to that bloodline, to that Nagel Austrian bloodline. Uh, there's actually little doubt, even though I never brought this up, that some of us are related through the Nagel line. Not the Ansar line, to the Nagel, N-A-G-L line. But maybe not. Maybe it's distant, but it surely goes back several hundred years. But we're in a day and age where they have created an artificial immigration crisis, where they have destabilized countries, and they have used the major medias to turn supposed conspiracy aware people away from immigrants and refugees. Now, David Icke has a certain amount of compassion to him, but he still plays into the game for conspiracy theorists, and that is what is sad. It's sad because I believe now, after all these books that David Icke has published, that David Icke knows better. And I'm not the first person. I'm not going to get in line to say that he's doing it for money. But I can't say that's not the case. When David Icke goes on the Alex Jones show, and I assume that David Icke has all really the money that he needs. He's published enough books. I really have always found it mystified why David Icke claims he lives in poverty. The whole living in an apartment off the Isle of Wales, living humbly. I understand that. In the video showing, hey, I live humbly. Um, I really don't make much off what I do, type of a thing. And there's nothing wrong with making money off what you do. Otherwise, we would, out of survival, have to go be someone else's slave. That's what some people don't understand about this new market that's been developing with video and documentary films. Books have been around for a while, but for people like myself that aren't authors, but we make videos, it's a fairly new thing for the human species. to have people that basically work for themselves, create their own content, or working for others, people that run websites, people that run blogs. I do that as well. It's a fairly new thing, but we don't do it per se for money. We just want to survive and get to the next. And see, I want to survive society. That's why I went off grid. I'm not on a model to even make rent money. I'm on a model of, hey, I'm just surviving for the next, however long it takes to get this property paid off. And who knows what will be of my life then. It would be nice to bring in more income and go further off grid, but a person like myself who believes they have something to offer, even to major populations, I find it safe, emotionally, physically, and other, for me to be away from people. I don't like to be judged. And what I don't see David Icke doing, what I don't see other people in the alternative media doing, is actually really calling out the white supremacy that does exist. They cover it to a point to appease a certain amount of their audience or numbers of their audience, but they don't go all the way, and they compromise. Now, why is David Icke compromising his morals, his integrity, and his very reputation that he has worked his whole life to build? Why would David Icke continue to associate with a man that does caricatures of immigrants, basically depicting them as racist? Alex Jones, a person that was an inspiration to me also in the 2002 time period, going all the way up until the late 2009s, until I really started to see a shift within him in 2011 to 12 to 13 to, oh my, 2014 to, oh my God, 2015, 2016, the Barack Obama for the right that Alex Jones promoted, Donald Trump. So I was watching David Icke in 2016, the same year that he said would be the year of the great change. And he was like backtracking and going into this new age. It was almost like he was back in the 80s again, or we were back in the 80s hearing somebody talk about the Pleiadians saving us in 2016. David Icke was saying that last year, and I even mirrored the video because I was so shocked when I heard it. There are things in this book that are fantastic from this 1995 book, especially the freedom in the back. So this is not a challenge to David Icke's ideas. I and him happen to share a lot of similar ideas, but there's a lot of things about David Icke that I don't associate with, including ayahuasca ceremonies, deities, channelers, and I believe there needs to be a greater voice coming from those that aren't completely white. I've never seen David Icke. I've never seen David Icke go detailed into why they would be doing this to the Afghans and Iraqis. The man talks about reptilians, for crying out loud. Well, I reference them as well. I also reference the Archons, and I hope David Icke sees this. David, why is it difficult for you to verbalize that the people of the Middle East are being wiped off the face of the earth, and you somehow are associated with one of the main propaganda men, and his name is Alex Jones? The last thing, David, that I'm going to accuse you of is being, per se, a white supremacist. The last thing that I'm going to accuse you of being involved in a nefarious plot. A lot of people call David Icke and others shield because it's like a gaming online sport for them. They just do it because they're angry that they don't like what's being said. Very few people actually, maybe they are religious and they don't like things that sound new age. David Icke's been really attacked by Christians. But where really is the outcry from the research community regarding white supremacy and the behavior of Alex Jones and his associates? Unfortunately, we mostly see it from the left. And what are they doing? They're bringing it up to demonize conspiracy facts that they call conspiracy theories so they can put us all in this box. All the world's knowledge, right? Put its little dot, this little penny, and put a stamp on it, call it conspiracy theory. Now, I can tell you that David Icke and others, they have never been impressed by the only person of Afghan descent in the truth movement. Alex Jones looked disgusted by me when I physically met him in 2005. He spoke to me again on the phone in 2007 because he was promoting Endgame. And it seemed at that point that I may have been up and coming because Alex and others were hearing about some of the interviews that I was doing in Portland, Oregon. And there was crossover in our guests from time to time. So Alex Jones for years knew who I was, and I've heard from inner circles always saw me as potential future competition, even though I'm not competition, but potential future competition, or maybe ego over another Alex. I always picked up on that as well. But with regards to David Icke, because I've always seen those as like, like the yin and the yang, maybe not the left and the right, the east and the west. I've always seen David Icke as the spiritual one that would speak out against the illusions of separation. Something has Icke's tongue. He says just enough to show that he hasn't changed per se. Something has his tongue, something has his wallet, something has his mind. I'm not going to go on too long, but it was clear to me that David Icke, if he was intuitive at one point, he wasn't working with solid intuition during the period of the People's Voice. The few minorities that he had that were a part of that weren't very well known. There was one Indian lady, but I had the feeling the whole thing was a farce, and it didn't last very long. So there was a feud between David Icke and Sonia Polton, which you can learn all about, even watch David Icke's explanation, where he's basically blaming everyone around him for backstabbing him. And I'm listening to that, and I like to hear David Icke talk at times, not so much anymore, because now I understand there's something wrong with Icke. I mean, so much is out on the table now. And also, he's on both sides, so he's pro-Brexit, and I try to stay out away from politics. I'm not a globalist, obviously, for anyone who looks at my work. But a lot of people that are pro-Brexit happen to be pro-Brexit because they're freaking out about the people that are in their country. And the fact is, a lot of these countries have immigrants that are not involved in terrorism. And there are white supremacists that also looked at things like Brexit. So David Icke has a way of keeping strange bedfellows. And the downfall of a certain amount of white people that think that they are conscious, but they're actually not. This really also applies to unconscious hippie chicks, often associated with the Rainbow Family Gathering. Oh, we're all love and light. And then you go a little deeper and you go, whoa, there's some reptilian stuff there. David Icke, who has the look, by the way, of someone that perhaps knows quite a bit about that stuff, maybe for a reason. There seems to be a lack of genuine empathy, and I would say below the surface level anger from David that I've been sensing from him growing. There was much more of a peaceful, loving type of vibe after the 9/11 period. I know there was a lot of French stuff in his books, showing the Matrix, but at least at that point, I was really appreciative to see a person's books in the bookstore that was speaking my language. But see, you can undo good deeds no matter how many books you write. No matter how many books you write. And as far as I'm concerned, David Icke has a responsibility, more than me, more than most of you, because he has a long-standing history with Alex Jones, and Alex Jones is a major world player. For David Icke to not call out Alex Jones and analyze him and really lay it down the role that he's playing in the destabilization of this country. What it does then is shine the spotlight on David Icke. What is it, David Icke? Or is your decision making so poor that you lost all this money from the People's Voice because you had a poor intuition and you trusted pretty white people around you that you claim later stabbed you in the back in your 1 hour talk from several years ago? In your 1 hour talk from several years ago, you are discussing a crowd of hyenas in your eyes, including Sean, your webmaster. Here's a speculation, because you did just got done writing about the Archons and perception deception. It was about this thick, and I read half of it. A lot of it was unreadable, but I skimmed what I could. Question is, were you thrown out of balance spiritually to where you go out, you write about the Archons, your perception of how the Archons work in our world, and then all of a sudden you go and you throw millions into equipment and you raise money from your audience and it goes into this building where you pay an outrageous amount for rent? Have you never heard of off-grid living? Are you afraid of nature, David? You certainly seem really attached to these London epicenters. Isle of Wight. Yeah, that's also a real spiritual place. No, that's a natural place outside of London. in the England area, you haven't escaped the matrix. A little more than taking ayahuasca and going to Peru and going to a few conferences, a few conscious love and light awareness conferences where the more new age David Icke comes out, who talks about going beyond fear, right? And love. Love is all until you go on Alex Jones and you give attention and you help boost ratings and you help make money with it. It's the David Icke, Alex Jones radio show, 2017 edition. The meeting of the minds. That's what it always seemed to be to people like me until the last few years. So I'm going to continue to hope that David Icke grows a conscious and has a shift in consciousness. If there is good left in David Icke, that he will expose how the Archons are using this white supremacy movement and globalization to destroy so much of our way of life. David Icke knows better. He knows how the Archons feed on emotion. We speak the same language, but yet for some reason, he's associated with an Archon in human form. Why, David? Why?